Welcome to Fresh Tech Tips. I'm Darrell Norris, CEO of Fresh Tech Solutions. Today, I have a couple of my business partners with me today.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm Nicholas Mbezo Daniel, founder of Aegis Project Management.
And hello, everybody. I am Dr. Doug Franklin, CEO and co-founder of Deck Launch LLC. How you guys doing today?
Doing pretty good, Doc. Doing pretty good. What about yourself, Nick?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good.
How you feeling, Doc?
Feeling fantastic. It's another good Monday.
Me and you both. I'm really excited because today is the money episode. So today's Fresh Tech Tip topic is the purpose is profit. What do you mean by that, Nick? Let's define what profit is.
Yeah, no, so for today's topic, like Darrell was talking about, let's first go back down. Profit is the purpose that anybody goes into business. You go into business to make profit. So that being said, and keeping that in mind, we wanted to just discuss how to gauge how much profit you're making, and in the same sense, how healthy your business is. So that's why today we want to talk about profit margins. So profit margin tells you how much you make on the sale of your product or your service, and it's usually shown as a percentage, 25% profit margin, 50%, 10%. You hear those numbers around when you're doing your income statement. This is the end of the second quarter, I believe, guys? Second quarter, third quarter, whatever. I'm not counting right, but a lot of people right now are thinking about, okay, how have I done up to this point on their books and whatnot, and what do I project going forward? So these are some of the things that you're going to have to keep in mind when you're gauging how your business has done so far, and that's why we want to talk about it.
Yeah, so just like Nick said, we are a little bit after halftime of this business year, this fiscal year for your business. We had to stick a sports metaphor in there since we don't have too much, sports are finally coming back. But
finally.
But this is one of those things where you have the opportunity to look at what your business looks like. For especially for smaller businesses, when we think about our money, we just think about the money that's sitting in our pocket after we pay off everything. And if we have enough to get by or to be able to pay for some of the either expenses for the business, or if this is your only way of generating income, just paying for all the stuff that you have to pay for personally. Sometimes we just think that we're doing well as long as we have some money in our pockets. And so in this episode, we're going to talk a little bit about what does it mean to really be healthy financially in your business.
Definitely. And so I want to kind of go over three topics, three main types of profits. So I want to go over gross profit margins, operational profit margins, and net profit margins. So I want to start by jumping right into gross profit margins. And this is basically the revenues minus the cost of goods sold. So I kind of want to start by telling y'all a little bit about Fresh Tech and how we completely failed at this when we first started. So there was, we were selling these apps, and we thought we were making this money, and we're making these sales, but we had to pay our developers like a lot of money. So it was really hard to make any kind of profit. Yes, we're making sales, but we're paying all of our money out to all of the developers. It looks good, but we're not seeing anything. So what we had to do was we really had to look at our process and see about how we're gonna increase our profit margins. Do we need to find new developers, or do we need to start changing this expenses? Because it was at a point where I remember one project actually costed me money. so you never want to be in that predicament. And we definitely were, because we didn't know we were starting off. So get those margins in. Nick, can you talk a little bit about gross profit margins?
Yeah, so like Darrell said, and I'm sure Doug's gonna touch on this, is the first, margin that people calculate. because it just helps you set your prices. So if you're trying to figure out, hey, what price do I need to set my like Darrell just said, my good or my service so that I'm sustainable, so that, you know, I'm at least covering everything that it takes to go into it, and then maybe making a little bit of profit before I talk about anything else that goes into it. So this is like the highest level at the very least that people should be considering. And to do that, we just mentioned gross profit, which is going to be your revenue minus your cost of goods sold, which is everything that goes directly into creating the goods. So that's your direct costs, the materials, your labor, some indirect costs like sales costs, you know, to distribute to get it to wherever. If you're staging, if it's a real product that you're staging in a certain store, the amount of money it takes to get that product to where it can be sold. If you're doing a promotion, you know, if you're doing a discount, all those things that take out of that price or that money that could be coming in, those are all related to cost of goods sold. So once you have that, and then you divide it by your revenue, it's going to give you a number, which is called gross profit margin. And I know we're doing this podcast. We're going to be talking about numbers because it's important. If you're doing your books, we want to know. I want to know what these things mean. But it doesn't mean that if you're a little bit confused by them, doesn't mean that you should harp on them that much. I want you to understand the idea behind it, the idea behind why cost of goods sold is important, or why we want to look at gross profit and trickle that down to the other two profit margins that we're going to talk about.
Yeah, and the best way that I can explain this is like basically this is one of the things we talk about with some of our restaurant clients. And so, like for example, if you're going to make a burger, there's no possible way that if you're a brand new burgerpreneur that you're going to be able to charge or be able to have the cost of goods sold that a Five Guys has per unit. And so, yeah, so if Five Guys is selling a burger at $7.50, it doesn't mean that you go ahead and immediately make the decision to make your burgers $7.50 just like Five Guys, because the direct labor that you have, the materials that you're getting, because you're probably not buying them in bulk, if you're just basically one restaurant versus a franchise, are going to be way less. Are way greater per unit than something like Five Guys. And so one of the things that you have to be careful about is not only knowing your worth, which we always tell you here, where you may have a burger that's very, very well worth $10 to $15, but you also need to know that your worth is actually taking care of all those costs on the back end, because those burgers might cost you $10, and you're thinking you're $10 a piece, and you're thinking, oh well, I can sell them at $7.50, when you should be selling them at $12 to $15. So this is just a place to keep your eyes open before you look at the entire story of your business.
Yeah, and I love that, because there's a lot of people think competition, and yes, I'm gonna compete with my competitors, but you're not even on the same level. You're not getting the same prices as them, so it really doesn't make sense. So you have to know your business for you and your costs to make those kind of decisions. And another thing about cost of goods sold, I feel like it's a different ball game when we're talking about products versus services. When we're talking about a product, if you're selling t-shirts, you instantly know your cost. You know how much it's going to cost to buy the shirts, how much is the machine going to cost to print, whatever you're doing. It's an exact cost. For a company like Fresh Tech, it's a little bit more difficult, because our direct costs are project specific. So we can't really just have an outline saying, hey, this is going to be this much. So our cost of goods change every single project. So it's a little bit more complicated than selling a product. And we have a company selling products too, and it's a lot easier to see the big picture on that business. Shout out to Granny's grandchildren. So it's really important to know that direct cost, because it's really going to affect your bottom line. So let's get into this into our next one, Nick. Let's talk about operational profit margin. What's the difference between operational and gross?
Yeah, and definitely, and Doug's about to hop on this one, but real quick, let me couch it for you, Doug. let me throw you to Allie. So once we're going to be building on these, right? So we talk about gross profit margin being like the high point. So we're starting to add, once we have cost of goods, so it's like, okay, what other costs do we have, or what other expenses do I have as a business that I need to keep in mind when I'm gauging the health or how much profit I'm making. So the next one logically will be, okay, how much does it cost me to operate my business? Because that's probably going to be my next major expense. So this is why people try to capture this with operational profit margin. Doug, man, what are some of these operational costs?
So I mean, you could be talking about your rent, you're talking about administrative expenses, you're talking about salary. There's a bunch of things that in accounting they call them fixed costs, the things that you're just gonna have to pay and you're gonna have to cover them regardless. Like those are the things that sit in those operational costs. And so you can understand how operational costs can blow up if you're not taking them into consideration. The first person I think of is one of the stories that we told at the beginning of the Fresh Tech Tips podcast. I think he was in Why Idea Sucks, the flip flop god. What do we call the flip flop? Yes.
Connoisseur.
The connoisseur. There was a purveyor of flip flops who had bought about 1,000 pairs from the Philippines at like 10 cents a pair, and he actually put them into a factory. I'm sorry, it had to be 10,000 because it was just an egregious number. Puts it into a factory, or puts it into a warehouse rather, for something like $2,500 a month, and then still expected to be able to sell them for $5 a pop. By the time he actually got to market, because of the nature of paying for rent, for paying for all the other things that he didn't take into consideration. Because I mean, there's just things. He probably didn't take into consideration the shipping from the Philippines. We did a quick and dirty profit and loss statement, and his sandals cost the same amount as some Nike slides. So you might as well just go to Academy rather than buy these 5 to 10 cent flip flops that he wanted to sell at like maybe $5 to $10, because the flip flop market is very, very is very elastic. I mean, we choose flip flops as basically nice color, whatever. He had no competitive advantage, and so he might still actually have those things sitting in the warehouse, or he might throw them out. I don't even know how he's doing, but there was no way he was going to be able to get anywhere, because his revenue was already so far over, or so far under his operational costs that the party was over.
Yep, even before getting started.
Yeah. So operational cost is very important to know, because now we're talking about, we're just adding on to what that number really is. So you're gonna have those expenses that you're gonna have to take care of. I gotta pay these wonderful guys over here. So that's all in the operational costs. So it affects your bottom line. You need to know these numbers. Nick, let's get into the net profit margin.
Yeah, net profit margin. What we're saying is probably, to me, the most important one. So now we want to capture every expense. So we're talking about operational. We're talking about cost of goods sold. That captures a big amount of the expense. But what about if I had an investment, I have to pay money back to my investors, or I have a loan out I took out for the business, and I need to pay that back. How do I capture these other expenses that are definitely coming out of every dollar that I'm making? So everything else is going to be captured here. So you want to capture all your expenses, everything else that you're paying out of this. If you make a single dollar, everything else that comes out before you have your net profit. So that's what we're trying to capture at the net profit margin. And the reason why I say this is the most important, because in all likelihood, this is the money that you're actually seeing. This is actually what ends up being available to you at the end of the day. So that's why I think it's the most important of these margins, but they're all important. They all have their purposes. So we use revenue minus cost of goods sold, and all expenses in capital letters is going to give you your net profit. And once you divide that by your revenue, it's going to give you your net profit margin.
Yeah. And you also, taxes are included in that as well.
Yes, exactly. Taxes are definitely included into that, because that definitely counts. They're coming for that money.
Definitely. Doc, you got any anything for us for net profit margin?
I don't have anything for net profit margin. You guys said it perfectly, but I do have a little bit of bonus round stuff for everybody. So there's a couple of other measures that I would recommend that you do if you're trying to see what does this mean for your business. Because again, right, we're right there at halftime. You got to finish this. You got to finish the year strong, regardless of whatever's going on. So one of the things that we like to look at here at between Fresh Tech and Deck Launch is a break even. So your break even is your contribution margin, which is your gross profit margin, your operating expenses divided by your gross profit margin. So that tells you how many units you have to sell to be able to make sure that you cover everything for the year or for the rest of the year or for this month. Those are things that are really important for you to understand. And that's another one of those indicators that says, okay, I can sell a $7 burger versus a $15 burger. Additionally, one of the things that's really interesting that's come up just recently is the customer acquisition cost. So people are starting to look at how much it costs to get new clients every month. And so what does that inform? So even though marketing is one of those fixed costs probably for your business, if you're doing the same thing every month, knowing how many people you're actually new people you're bringing in, along with the people that you retain, should tell you a little bit about your gross margin, which might freak you out a little bit, but it might make you feel really good. So those are some things that I also recommend that you look at when you're looking to see if your purpose for your business is profit.
I love that, Doc. Yeah, because it's very important for you to know those things, man. Even with us, the break-even point, when we started Fresh Tech, I like I said, I didn't know what I was doing back then. I thought my break-even point was 2 apps. Like if I sell 2 apps, it's break-even. Not at all. It was more around 6, 7. I didn't calculate those hidden expenses that I never thought about. So those expenses are very, very important.
One of the fun things we enjoy every year when it pops up in the Fresh Tech or Darrell's Facebook is his old flyer with the numbers that were so far beyond below the market.
It's embarrassing.
Oh man. Now it shows growth.
Growth is good, man.
Look, y'all, don't be trying to go find them flyers because I'm not respecting those prices. I'm telling y'all right now. Don't do it. I'm not respecting them. So, man, it's been a great conversation, y'all. I always love chopping it up with the team for Facebook Live and all the other platforms we're in. So just because you have some sales doesn't mean that your business is booming. You have to determine how much money you're actually keeping. Knowing your numbers will allow you to make better business decisions. So please know your numbers. Please join us next week and every Monday at 12 o'clock p.m. We might be a little late, but we'll be there. So join us at 12 p.m. Join the Facebook group. It's called Fresh Tech Tips. And we will see y'all next Monday around 12. Talk to y'all soon. Thanks for joining Fresh Tech Tips.
All right.